All right, now that I have your attention, I'll explain something that's a little bit too backwards to be true. It's prevalent in podcast, alternative media, to crow that if we let Israel do what they did to Gaza and Lebanon, they're going to come after us next. You can shock that wild world of wisdom. They came after us first. I've explained the way the Texas school book describes their reasons for murdering JFK and the Holy War mission in which they released the AIDS virus. It's all described in the Texas school book. To schools for 20 years, to politicians, to community members, to caregivers. And even though people agree that I'm onto something, that it's true, that there's too many convincing details to ignore it, they do ignore it. I'll give you a description of an example. It's reasonable and meaningful to suggest that state police should assign somebody, federal marshals should assign somebody to look into that, at the very minimum, some academic freedom group should, at the very minimum, look into the fact that Reagan's attorneys from the FEMA had me in D.C. the day he claims he was shot, and he came down and waves to me the night before. Why would they do this to me? The Beatles summoned up a story and a major syndicate from Hollywood, easily as big as Lucas, if not Lucas himself, to badger me day in and day out for 50 years. Because I symbolized America. My name is old. It was a Plymouth meeting. My father was on Bush's ship in the Navy and worked with Eisenhower at Teachers College. So they made me priceless by devaluing me to a penny. That's their mindset. Because my father wrote a book on human rights. And his attorneys from the FEMA, which are all Israelis who had me in D.C. for the show, gave me a brochure that read, "There's no such thing as objective reality, only what the jury believes." That's significant enough that even without the mirror between Zapruder's film and Reagan's film, The Killers, going back and forth between Hollywood and reality, there's no such thing as objective reality, only what Hollywood wants you to believe. It's what Miles Kirshner, that's quite Malakovich Kushner, wants you to believe. Even without the mirror of The Killers and the Zapruder film. But when you factor in the long-standing presence of CIA involvement with Hollywood, double agent training, double agents to put on acts. Alan Dulles wrote a book about it. Wrote a book virtually about Lee Harvey Oswald called The Craft of Intelligence. It was ignored. He assigned Cecil B. DeMille to Radio Free Europe after World War II. The fact was ignored. These biblicist worked in Fayum with Gabriel D'Annunzio, Mussolini, and D.W. Griffith. It was ignored. They created the Burning Cross for the KKK. It was ignored. What I propose to give you is something new for you to ignore. And that's the fact that the Burston script, which implicates Paul McCartney through and through because of the way he used lovely Rita Meter made is a collection agency for the Carousel Club. You know, bum, 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 bum. Remember the Carousel Club music? And for the benefit of Mr. K, we lastly threw a hogshead of real fire. And then they staged Leonard Giudini and the shooting of Reagan, and they have it all in a script that's going to take over America for the biblicists from the royal families around the world. I'll give you something new that you can ignore. The script is mirrored again. In fact, the film Taxi Driver refers to the same system as Rita Mater made. And the ways that you can know this are such things as if actually did or did not Michael Ewart and Jimmy Devlin bring me in contact with a triumvirate of named Nancy, Barbara, and Jody in 1976, 75. They did. So Nancy, Barbara, and Jody are star players in this Guerrilla Theater production, which traces back to a script from 1974-75. Nancy Reagan, Barbara Bush, Jody Foster. And they had me in D.C. for the production. Now, Nancy's brother was robbing the museum in the way Schulman was. These people are thieves, and they came after me because they understood that if I was cultivated into a character of stature through the Pittsburgh public school system, it would undermine their attempts to enslave the masses. Because the Pittsburgh public school system, which my father helped build, he was a philosopher of education, were a group of people who were committed in principle to the safety and development of what class? Pittsburgh public school children. And that was ruled out by this Confederacy. Jodie Foster plays a child prostitute in Taxi Driver, and the Warpo World people run amok over it and shoot. They're basically institutionalizing compromat, the Russian theme of sex is assassination. If a girl comes onto you out of wedlock, she is trying to murder you. Because if you have sex with her, there's going to be a follow-up to coit. These people have robotic mentalities. And we're up against something which is more dangerous than Hitler because Hitler did not have robots. So sex is assassination, absolute fact in this crowd. And they call themselves the Moral Army because they exterminate everybody to reset the clock for the future when one man, one woman is the law. Marital law, martial law, just marital martial. And they created this game called Two Virgins Pussy Ball. And let me tell you, Ronnie Zisinski came up to school with this long oil tube, the long cardboard tube, forced me to take nitroglycerin. That might even be where my heart murmur came from. And they deafened me. And Busis, the ear doctor, who was in Auschwitz and had a tattoo, and saw Mengele, said it was impossible to get reliable pure tone results from the queer ball. And then they locked me into his shed with a girl from Seven Beauties who's a DD, a 12-year-old Hollywood prostitute from the Italian franchise in Eastminster District. To go around shooting people for getting the titty. So you have this pizza shop mentality in the production system of Two Virgins, the Texas school book, allowing the murder of JFK and Martin Luther King. It's allowed because we have this finer, glorious Trump system that we're going to conglomerate. So they came after us before they went after Gaza. Get that much through your stupid heads. Now, Dee Dee Allen is like Woody Allen. Everything you wanted to know about sex, but were afraid to ask. The U.S. government, in other words, allowed, licensed an overdeveloped, experienced 12-year-old. They gave her union working papers, and then they brutally enslaved me to servicing her. The wonder lingers, but the shame remains, said Nabokov, one of these gruesome idiots like Milan Kundera who were in on it. Dee Dee Allen appears at the beginning of Serpico. Notice they gave me a facial with a nerve agent, shot Serpico in the face. Hillary Clinton is nowhere to be found. She eloped with Malala and said, don't say a word about this because Jimmy could have had Masako. It was a little girl routine to avenge the little boy. And they have, the circus goes around mentality. I don't know why the Catholic Church organization would go along with something like this, but they were clearly instigated. The Carls went to Central Catholic. Vince Irene was Catholic workers. It's some sort of gobbledygook from the institution of the church that doesn't want the public school system to succeed in creating people of character. They want control of the money bags, and they want to make themselves out to be the most precious of the charitable people on earth. I'm not trying to undermine their contributions at all, but look at the godforsaken thing that this allowed to happen because they just sat still. Well, the Israelis attacked America. They were free to go after Gaza and Lebanon. That's the real circuit board.